Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Leadership Project Live. Today's topic is going to be on another superpower of leadership, and that is the topic of humility and vulnerability. This is a topic that's quite often misunderstood. So stick around for some very practical tips on how you can embrace humility and vulnerability to take your leadership to the next level. So welcome back to the Leadership Project Live. Thanks for joining us again today. As always in the show, if you do have any questions for us or any comments, please go ahead and put those in the comment section of wherever you're watching us from. We're live streaming out to Facebook, to LinkedIn, and to YouTube all at once. So wherever you're joining us from, if you do have a question or you do have a comment, please do go ahead and leave those for us. We'd love to hear what you think about today's topic. So we are going to talk about humility and vulnerability. This is a true superpower of leadership and something that can unlock great success in your life and in the way that you lead high performance teams. It's something that's also quite often misunderstood. So make sure that you stick around to the end, where I'm going to give you some practical tips on how you can get started with this deep topic around humility and vulnerability. So without any further ado, let's get straight into today's content. So live streaming out today on LinkedIn, on YouTube, on Facebook, on this deep topic of vulnerability and humility. So before we get started, I'll give a few announcements on some releases this week on the Leadership Project. So we were greatly honored this week to be joined by Lon Stroschein. And Lon Stroschein gave us some practical tips on how you can navigate pivotal career decisions when you get into a situation where you don't know whether to stay in your current job, to switch to another job, another career even, go out on your own, follow a passion, and some of those decision-making processes, thinking about, am I going to regret this? Am I going to regret doing it? Am I going to regret not doing it? And Lon provided some really practical tips in that interview about how you can process those decisions. So please do check out on YouTube the interview so you can take advantage of those practical tips. Yesterday, then, we released our video podcast and our audio podcast of Vera Quinn. Vera is someone that literally went from door-to-door sales through to being CEO of a successful organization. And her inspirational true story is one of determination, one of having a creator mindset instead of a fixed mindset, one of having a growth mindset instead of a fixed mindset, I should say. So no victim mindset. She's a creator mindset instead of a victim mindset, a growth mindset instead of having a fixed mindset. And it's a story full of personal accountability, taking personal accountability for your own decisions in life and creating the life that you'll be happy with and proud of. So subscribe to the YouTube channel and you'll be able to catch Vera Quinn's interview there as a video podcast. So on to today's topic. Today's topic is going to be about humility and about vulnerability. So for the purpose of humility as a leader, I want to share a few definitions with you. The way to think about it is this. Humility as a leader is not pretending that you have all the answers. And a huge common mistake that many first-time leaders make in particular is thinking that they need to have all the answers. And that's not true at all. You're there to create the environment where your team can do their very best work. You employ people for their intellect, for their skills, for their experience. So you don't have to have all the answers, but you do have to create the environment where people can do their very best work and can co-create together. So the first step in humility is that we need to stop pretending that we have all the answers. The second part is admitting when we make a mistake. And this can be tough for some people. It really can. So I get that. But we need to be able to stick up a hand and to be able to admit when we have made a mistake. And you're going to see in today's video as to why that is so important. Getting some comments through here. Avi, thank you. Good morning, Mick. And regards to my wife, thank you very much. Appreciate the comment there. The next part around humility is not to think that you're better than everyone else. This is where you really start getting a bit grandiose, believing that you're better than the people around you. And if other people feel that, it's very off-putting. If you're portraying yourself as someone that thinks they're better than everyone else, you're going to get people offside very quickly. And the role of a leader is to inspire people into meaningful action around your worthy cause. And people are not going to follow you if they believe that you think that you're better than everyone else. So park your ego at the door and become more humble. Now, what about vulnerability? The other key topic that we're talking about here. Well, it's the willingness to show emotion. The willingness to show emotion. If you're having a bad day, to, in the right way, share that you're having a bad day. If you're very happy, share that you're very happy. If you've got weaknesses, and we all have weaknesses, there's no such thing as a perfect leader. It's about allowing others to see that weakness, which is, in fact, a way to build trust, because you're then showing the other person, by showing your vulnerable side, by showing your weaknesses to them, you're showing that you trust them. You're showing that you trust them because you're sharing what could be considered a secret with them, that you're trusting that they won't use that against you. So Avi, great comment here. Even leaders, they still learning humility is so important. Yes, learning humility every day. I work on it every day. I work on my leadership every day. It's always a work in progress. Thank you for the comment there as well. So we've got humility and we've got our vulnerability. Let's unpack it a little bit further. The first thing you might be thinking is that when a leader shows humility or when they show vulnerability, isn't that a sign of weakness? Isn't it weak leadership? And John C. Maxwell sums this up beautifully. He talks about a time that he was on stage and he had this very question from a senior executive, a captain of industry, where he was trying to encourage people to admit their mistakes and admit their shortcomings. And this very experienced executive in the room, a CEO of a multinational company, challenged John and said, but that's just showing weakness and I don't want to be a weak leader. And John's answer just summed it up beautifully. And he said that that's because you think they don't already know. That's because you think they don't already know. So by admitting your mistakes, admitting your weaknesses, it's a show of authenticity. People are very astute judges of character. They generally know what you're good at. That's probably why they're following you. But they also know that you're human. They know that you have weaknesses. They know that you have foibles. So by opening them up and admitting to them and having the self-awareness to own your weaknesses, it builds trust because they now see you as an authentic human being. And they know that when you speak, they can trust what you're saying because you're going as far as openly sharing when you make a mistake. The other key is to think about, well, what else happens when we're not humble? Now, in Australia, we have a term for this. I believe it's relatively universally translatable, but we have a specific term for this in Australia. It's called the tall poppy syndrome. And this is when someone gets quite full of themselves, they're quite successful, they're out there, they're put on a pedestal by society and their ego gets away on them. We call it the tall poppy syndrome. And you can see here with the scissors that people want to cut that person down. So if you're coming across as too perfect, too successful, too out there, you're also popping your head up and running the risk of people wanting to cut you down. So you also have to be careful around this concept called the tall poppy syndrome. If anyone knows what that's called in other countries outside Australia, I would love to know, but I'm quite certain that the concept is universal, even if you haven't heard this phrase before. Now, let's reverse it. What are the benefits? We've heard some of the dangers of not being humble and not being vulnerable. What are the benefits? Well, first of all, you become more relatable. People want to connect with people that they know, like, and trust. How do they get to know you? Yes, you do need to be out there. So we're not saying don't be outwardly vocal about who you are, what you do, and why you do it. They also want to like you. And being humble is a very likable trait. And they want to trust you. And to trust you means that they believe in the things that you're telling them. And when we are humble, when we are vulnerable, and we're willing to admit the negative side of life, they're more likely to believe us when we talk about the positive side of life. So it builds trust. It makes us approachable because we are a human being. So if we want someone to come up to us and share something about them with us, the best way to do that is to share something about us with them. So we start the process. We start the process with humility and vulnerability, and then others will approach us. And they'll approach us with good news, with bad news, with indifferent news, because they trust us, and they'll build this strong connection with us. And this strong connection is built on trust. They're trusting that what I'm saying is true. I'm trusting what they're saying is true. They're trusting that my intentions are pure. I'm trusting that their intentions are pure. They're trusting that I have their interest in heart. I'm trusting that they have my back as well. So it starts becoming this contract between individuals when you're able to be humble and vulnerable. The next benefit is it then gives them the comfort and space that they can do it too. So when we are humble, when we are vulnerable, others feel comfortable to do the same. Most importantly, as a leader, they're then highly likely to come to you and admit their own mistakes. And I can guarantee you what you don't want as leader is someone that is scared to come to you with their mistakes, because they'll start hiding it. They'll start trying to obfuscate. They'll try to dodge accountability because they don't want to be the person that makes a mistake. And one of my favorite authors, Tim McClure, sums this up beautifully, that the biggest concern for any organization should be when their most passionate people become quiet. So if you haven't created that culture of humility and vulnerability, people are not telling you what's really going on in the business. And you increasingly get more disconnected from everything that's happening on the front line. And when you're disconnected, you can't make good decisions, decisions that are the right decisions for the people, for the business, or even yourself. So humility and vulnerability breeds humility and vulnerability, so that you have open and transparent, honest conversations about where things are in life. Now, here's a vulnerable moment. I'm going to share this. This makes me proud every week that my son watches the show and always wants to get a comment out there. Hi, Dada. So thank you, Thomas. I really appreciate you. This is me sharing my vulnerable side, that my family is incredibly important to me, the most important thing in my world. And I'm not afraid to share that with anyone. It shows me as human, and I want everyone to feel comfortable to be proud of their family and to share it with people. What else? Well, it's also the way we learn. Humility is a vehicle towards learning. When you're humble and you're able to say things like, and I'm going to say this again later, I don't know, or tell me more, or to not pretend that you have all the answers, all of a sudden you become open to new ideas, which generates diversity of thought. So if you go into a meeting thinking that you know the answer to every single question, you don't go out of that meeting any wiser than when you went in, because you're not listening anymore. You're only listening to the things that confirm what you already believe, and you walk away from the room thinking how smart you are, but you didn't learn a damn thing. When we go into a meeting with humility, we walk away from that meeting richer because we're open to new ideas. Otto Scharmer refers to this as the practice of deep listening, and he has 4 levels of listening. At level 1, we're only listening to the things that confirm what we already believe, or what he calls downloading. At level 2, we're listening with an open mind, where we might park some of our predetermined ideas and be open to new ideas. Level 3 is to listen with an open heart, which is then to consider the emotion of the situation as well, not just the facts, but the emotion as well. And then at level 4, we listen with an open will. And when we listen with an open will, we can start imagining a new world and a new reality. And we can start co-creating new solutions to old problems, or even new solutions to new problems for that matter. So when everyone goes to a meeting with humility, you can still know that you're taking something to the meeting. So you're providing some input to that meeting, but you're taking more away from that meeting because you actually didn't think that you knew all the answers before you started. This is how we solve the world's problems, by getting together, listening to each other, holding space for each other, being humble, not pretending that we know all the answers, and then we can build something better together. It also creates space for people to learn and grow. So you may be the expert in a topic. No problem with that. And we're going to talk about owning your strengths in a few moments. But if you're the expert every single time, other people don't get the opportunity to learn and grow. So by taking a humble step backward, even in a topic where you are quite knowledgeable, it creates space for others to step up and start learning and growing. It also becomes a source of empowerment, because now the people feel like they're part of the solution. Instead of being told the solution by the smartest person in the room, they now feel like they're part of the solution. And when they feel empowered and engaged, they're going to take more accountability and more responsibility. If they feel like they are the co-architect of the solution, it's going to dramatically increase their buy-in. Now, you might be asking, well, what if this is so good, what holds people back? Why aren't people doing it already? And of course, some people are, but not everyone gets this right. I admit I didn't always get this right in my career, that's for sure. What holds us back is pride. It can be hard to admit when you've made a mistake. Your own personal pride gets in the way. It might even be your ego, and ego is an often misunderstood word, but it means sense of self. So if my sense of self is of a very smart, intellectual person, and now I admit that I was wrong, is it challenging my own sense of self? Is it a challenge to my ego? And when it comes to externalization or externalization of this, we start asking, well, what will people think of me? If I admit that I was wrong and I got it wrong, what are people going to think of me? And we usually come to a conclusion that people might think less of us. But the funny thing is, the exact opposite is true. When we're able to admit that we made a mistake, that we got it wrong, people admire us more. So we have this feeling holding us back, that we're worried that people will think less of us. And yet, if we stick up our hand and admit that we've made a mistake, people actually think more of us. And you know it yourself. When people come to you and admit they've made a mistake, there's a little part of you that instantly goes, wow, yeah, that's really cool. Thank you. Thank you for admitting that. Now let's work on it. This includes, for those out there that have bosses, and most of us do, this includes to your boss. Listen, if you don't get anything else from today's live stream, take this one away. When you go to your boss and admit that you made a mistake, they don't think less of you. They think more of you. Particularly if you then take accountability for learning from the mistake and correcting the mistake and doing it differently next time. I can tell you, I've got a very large team. When people do this in my team, I think more of them, not less of them. I think here's a person of integrity. Here's a person of values. Here's a person with a growth mindset that takes accountability and responsibility for their actions. That's what people think, not the opposite. That's your key lesson for today. Now, it's not all wine and roses. Of course, it can go wrong. So where do we have to be careful? Where can humility go wrong? When we don't own our superpowers and strengths and we start being self-deprecating all the time, where we're always playing down our own contribution, that's not what we're talking about here. We actually do want you to be proud. We want you to own your superpowers. We want to own your strengths. We just want you to do it with an air of humility and with an equal understanding of what your strengths are, have an equal understanding of what your weaknesses are, and stop pretending that you know everything. Because when we do this, we rob people of those gifts. Every single person on the planet has got a superpower, something that they're extraordinarily gifted at. We want you to own that. We want you to own those gifts, and we want you to share those gifts with the world, but we want you to do it with an air of humility and vulnerability. So what we're talking about here is we want you to add two things together in a very potent mix. If you can be both confident and humble in equal measure, this is a recipe for success. Because confidence without humility just looks like arrogance, but humility without confidence just looks like self-deprecation. So be confident in your own skin. Be confident in sharing yourself with the world. That's what vulnerability is all about. But then have the humility to understand your weaknesses and your shortcomings and where you might need to do a little bit of extra work. This is what will make you a great leader. This is what will make you successful in life, mixing confidence and humility together. Now, you might be wondering, well, where do I start? If you're listening to this show and going, yeah, maybe I've gotten a few things wrong here, here are a few tips. A very powerful phrase. I don't know. So if someone comes to you with a challenging problem and you legitimately don't know the answer to the question, start with I don't know. I don't know. And let's work on it together. Could be I don't know, but I'm going to find out. Or I don't know, let's work through it together. That's a great way to start with your humility. The next part is to get curious. Even if you are very smart and very gifted in the field that you've been asked a question about, still get curious. And you can do this, well, this is what I know about the problem. What do you know about the problem? And we start sharing openly and not pretending that we know everything. So we get curious. And the third one is to admit your mistakes. Admit your mistakes. Admit your mistakes and what you learned from them and what you're going to do to work on those mistakes. So what would you do differently next time? You've heard me talk about self-reflection before. This is the perfect example of this. The 5 questions we ask ourselves in self-reflection. What went well? What didn't go well? What will I do differently next time? What did I learn about myself? And what did I learn about others? This is humility in practice. You can do it internally, and even more so when we're vulnerable, we can share that with everyone else. So here's your call to action for today's show. Check in with yourself. Are you humble? Do you show humility? Do you show vulnerability? If not, why not? What's holding you back? Is it some of these limiting beliefs that we spoke about earlier where you're concerned that people will think less of you by admitting your mistakes? Well, I want you to reframe that. Reframe and know that when we admit our mistakes and we admit our shortcomings, people think more of us, not less of us. They think more of us, not less of us. Remember the benefits. Then when we show humility and vulnerability, it creates the space where others can as well. Gives them the license to be themselves, to be their authentic self. It gives them the space where they're happy to share when they make a mistake, which is something you definitely want to know. And it gives them the space to learn and grow. Start role modeling the behaviors that you want to see in others. If you're honest with yourself, you'll say that you admire humility in other human beings. Well, start role modeling that behavior yourself. And 3 powerful words that can get you started is just the words, I don't know. Stop pretending that you've got all the answers. Get curious and start asking better questions instead of always giving answers. Okay, that's our content for today. Hope you enjoyed the show. We've got more exciting interviews coming up on the Leadership Project podcast this week. We are joined by Tony Latimer, who talks to us about the power of coaching, about the powerful performance equation of performance equals potential minus interference, and how coaching can help us to overcome our limiting beliefs and our interference and our distractions, the things in our own mind that stop us from being as successful as we could be. And later in the week, we also have a special podcast where we talk about leadership in the nonprofit world. And it's really quite interesting, the differences on how leadership in the nonprofit world shows up. And then next week, as always, we'll bring you another powerful live stream where we share more tips on how to become a high performance individual and a high performance leader. We've just had one more comment come in, but some people, what we call leaders or mentors, are taking advantage from those learners with humility because those learning are just starting. That's when I'm not here to say, Avi, that every single person on the planet has altruistic intentions. The majority of us do. There are people that have malicious intent. So please do be careful out there. Be careful and look at someone's intent for sure. But the best way to combat that is through being humble and vulnerable ourselves. And here we go. Thank you for my morning knowledge. Thank you so much, Avi, as well. And thank you for joining. So please do join us again next week. It's been wonderful having you on the show. Thank you for everyone that joined live. For those that are watching the show afterwards, which we know a lot of you do watch the post recording, please do drop us a comment, drop us a like, and remember to subscribe to the Leadership Project YouTube channel. That's all for this week. Thank you.